That's what makes this place expensive. You buy something, you pay tax on it, and then they're asking for tips. And it's like that tip is sort of like compulsory. People are giving $80 tips.
Yeah, as a waitress, your money is your tips.
So what was the most you came home with in a day?
Probably $250.
$250 in a day?
In a day.
All on tips?
Yeah.
Wow.
Also restocking, cleaning tables, sweeping the floors, and making sure everything looks nice.
You sweep the floor as well?
Yeah.
As a waitress?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't have cleaners?
As a hostess as well.
Tracy, what other jobs are a bit easy to get in the US, even if you didn't go to school?
So yeah, you can work.
Stop that. Guys, as you can tell, I'm still in the US. If you haven't watched my video where I spoke about us moving from the UK to the US, I think you should watch it. I'll leave a link down below. Here is my lovely sister. Yeah. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I have two siblings that are Americans. They were born here and they've been living here since. One girl and a boy, okay? So she's a girl. She's our last girl and the fourth born. She's Tracy. So I'm gonna ask her a few things. So she's a student here in the US, but she works part-time as a waitress.
Not anymore. I'm a hostess.
You're a hostess. What's the difference?
So a waitress is someone who serves customers, but as a host, I am the first line where like I will seat you, greet you, make sure everything is okay with your meal, stuff like that. But I'm not going to serve you like the food.
Okay, so we have waitress and we have hostess.
The first person you see at the door is me.
Okay. What do you do? Like, which is more, sophisticated?
Waitress is probably more of a sophisticated job because you're earning tips. I also earn tips, but it's not
as
direct.
We'll talk about the tips because I've heard that. Guys, for those who have not visited the US before, this place is expensive. So you pay for the item and then you're charged tax on it. And then most of the time, they're waiting for you to give them a tip as well. So she works at a famous restaurant in the US, but this brand is in the UK as well. And she's worked as a waitress before, but at the moment, like today, she was working as a hostess, right? So I'm going to ask you a few things about it. I'm doing this because there are lots of people that may come to the US with, let's say, their partners or their parents, and they're thinking of some easy to get jobs, right? Until, let's say, they get their exams done and they start their professional job. These are some of the things that you can do. You can work as a hostess or a waitress. What are the requirements to work inside a job, and how many hours do you work?
There aren't really any. They prefer you to have experience with some type of experience, but my first job ever, I never had any experience. So what they looked at were like my grades or like any extracurricular activities that I did during school, but there's no requirements. Most people might ask you for like a high school degree, but it's not required.
Okay. So have you ever worked with anybody that did not school in the US?
I work with people that didn't have any education at all.
Any education at all? Wow.
If they know you got the skills, they will most likely hire you, yeah.
Okay. So we can confidently say that it's an easy to get job,
yeah,
whether you've schooled or not.
As long as, and also if you don't have any
criminal record. So what's the timing like? What time do you start work? What time do you close?
My waitress job was very hectic. So say I'm an opener, I open in the morning. I'll be up around 9 and I'd have to be there by 10:45 to open the restaurant.
Hello guys, welcome once again to my channel. So unfortunately, as you can see, our clothes have changed and then the environment has changed as well. So I thought I was recording at the restaurant where my sister works, but when I came home, I realized that it stopped at a point. So this is about 3 days after the first video was shot, and we've been having so much fun that
she brought home the sickness and now she's talking about
now everybody in the house has lost their voice, and she's lost her voice as well. So she's gonna sound a bit hoarse, but pardon us. I hope she's still audible. Tracy, so you were saying that some of the easiest jobs to get in the US, even if you didn't go to school, is to work as a waitress.
Yeah.
What other jobs are a bit easy to get?
So yeah, you can work retail.
When you say retail, what's retail?
Like retail in like clothing stores, supermarkets, like being a clerk or a cashier there, gas stations, janitors. Yeah.
Like cleaners?
Yeah, cleaners.
That's also easy to get?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you were saying that when you work as a waitress, how much do you get paid?
So I get paid $2 an hour.
$2 an hour?
But majority of my income is tips. So say you're working 6-hour shift. The people that come in are supposed to be generous enough to leave you a tip. Say you get like $20 from like all your tables throughout the whole day. You could walk out with almost like $200 that day. We do have slow days. So like the beginning of the week is usually slow because everybody's working and like no one's really out. But like from Fridays to like Saturdays and stuff like that, people are more likely to come eat with their family and stuff, and you probably get more tips. But yeah, majority of your income is tips. And how we clock that is you at the end of your shift, when you're ready to get your time stamps, you put your the amount you made. So then that way your taxes knows how much you made in tips.
So you pay tax on the tips?
No, the tax is deducted from your check. So how much you're getting paid, which is $2.
So what was the most you came home with in a day?
Probably $250.
250 in a day?
In a day.
All on tips?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's cash, so you can take it home. So it's hands-on and very fast money. So it's very addictive.
So you don't get paid much because obviously your employers know they're gonna get loads of tips.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, tipping is like sort of like a culture here.
Yeah.
When you go to the shops, you have to tip. I don't understand. It's not like that in the UK.
It's not just shops with Ubers, Lyfts, taxis, deliveries, like of food and stuff like that.
Nah, you guys, this place is that's what makes this place expensive. You buy something, you pay tax on it, and then they're asking for tips. And it's like that tip is sort of like compulsory. People are giving $80 tips,
Yeah,
$20 tips.
for you to keep to yourself. So.
Do you tip people yourself?
Yes. Ever since I started working in restaurants, I now understand the struggle. Because if I'm getting paid $2 an hour and no one's tipping me, obviously I'm gonna walk home with no money. So now that I've understood the pain and like how hard it is to work for your money, I always, whenever I go out to eat, I'll at least minimum $10, even when I'm broke, $10. So yeah, when you experience it for yourself, you realize how important it is to tip people.
So with other jobs that don't get tips, like a janitor, how much do they get paid per hour?
I don't know per se how much a janitor would get paid, but like say you want to work in retail, it's usually range from like 10 to like $15 an hour.
Okay. And with a restaurant job, like how many hours a shift?
This depends on like your own schedule. So when I used to work at the restaurant, I was in school. So I tell them like when I end class, which is like 3 o'clock till like, let's say 11, I wouldn't come to work at 3, but let's say 5, I'd be there, and then I'd work 5 to 11. So it just depends on your schedule, to be honest.
Okay, so you choose the time that you...
Yeah, so whatever works for you, they always ask you that.
Have you worked in retail before?
No, I have not.
So everything has been in the restaurant?
In the food industry, yes.
The food industry.
Yeah.
And do they give you some of the food to come home with?
Yeah, for me, I get a free shift meal, so whatever I want, and it's free. And then whenever I want to bring my family or anybody that I want to treat out, they also give me a 50% employee discount. And that goes for any store in that franchise. So I used to work at a restaurant called TGI Fridays. So if I were to go anywhere else and they know like, oh, like this is my manager, I can use my discount from them.
So if you come to a similar one in the UK, will you get a discount?
No.
Okay.
It has to be with them like this.
Oh, okay. And then what do you do aside asking people their order and serving them their order? What else do you do?
So before I was a server, I was a hostess. And as a hostess, which is also the job I am doing currently, basically you greet the customer at the front of the door, and then you hand them their silverware menus and napkins, and you guide them to the table. And then when you guide them to the table, you mark where they are, and then you have to go and explain to whoever's turn it is that's serving that this is your table and this is how many people are sitting there, and they will go and take their order. So that's kind of what you do for a host. As a host at TGI Fridays too, I was also packing to-go orders that people had, taking orders over the phone. If it's like a DoorDash or Uber Eats or a Grubhub order, I'm also packing it and then handing it to the delivery driver to deliver it. I was also restocking, cleaning tables, sweeping the floors, and making sure everything looks nice.
You sweep the floor as well?
Yeah.
As a waitress?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't have cleaners?
As a hostess as well too. Basically, it's like we're cleaning like for, like say a child makes a mess, I have to clean it. But there's also cleaners that deep clean the store.
Okay. And being black, do you experience any discrimination or racism as a waitress from employers or from senior managers or from guests, customers?
I remember when I first was working as a host, my old job, my manager, I had my hair in for a long time, and he was he was kind of hinting towards like I need to go get it freshened up. Like,
was it that bad?
I didn't think so. I guess if it was bad enough for him to notice.
Was
it's
it
not
braids?
funny.
Was it braids?
Yeah, it was braids, and my new growth was showing.
So it was bad. How long had you had it on?
Like 3 months.
Oh,
4 months. And he was like, so, like, when you gonna get your new hair done? Like, why are you asking me that as my manager? That's inappropriate.
No, because he needs you to look presentable. Because you're representing. Because you're representing.
First of all, that was my first job. Meaning I didn't have the money, so when I was doing my hair, I had to ask my parents for the money.
Okay.
But if you had paid me, gave my money, I would go get my hair done. And then it was around the time that the people had stormed the Capitol, and basically what that was like they climbed over the fence. They wanted to be heard or something, so they stormed the Capitol.
It was on the news. I'm sure everybody knows about it.
Yeah. And afterwards, I guess like they needed places to like eat and like kind of like because obviously there was also cops
and because where we
like
live is close to the White House
DC
and
area,
Capitol area.
They all came to our restaurant because obviously they're trying to get away from like the cops and everything. So they came and they were requesting to dine. But once they saw that it was a colored person standing in front of the door as a host, they turned their head and walked the other way. And also, there was this Asian woman. I had sat her as she was working as a waitress during the time. And her English wasn't very good. But once they had heard that her voice and had heard
her accent,
they just had got up and decided to leave. So those are like the very few incidents. But other than those two, I can't really mention another time that I've ever felt discriminated against or felt racism towards.
So for those who do hosting full time, how much can they make in a month?
Before I was a waitress, I used to host. By the time I was getting paid $10 an hour, so in a month I'd probably make $600.
Full time?
I've only worked part time.
So you are working part time?
Yeah.
How many hours a day? 4?
Well, in a week it would be like 30.
30 hours a week, and you made only $600 in a month?
Yeah, around that.
Okay, as part time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those that are doing full time can make, let's
make
say,
like almost 1,000.
600 around in a month, and that's not bad. The final words for somebody who'd like to work as a waitress, especially for people like us, as somebody who's been in that industry for a while.
My advice is, I must be very honest with you. There are days where I would sit there and no one would come in for like 5 hours. So it just depends on even the weather is effective on like how people make your money, right? So it's not easy work. There are days where you will come home with no money. It's not like you're getting paid every hour, so at least you have something to rely on. No, as a waitress, your money is your tips. So if you're not getting tips, you're not making
And you have to be really nice and really...
Yeah, like even if you're in a bad mood, put on a fake smile, because the way you are acting towards your guests it's going to be reflected onto you.
I'll leave my sister's social media.
Hey, please.
Why are you scared of people? I'll leave her social I'll leave her social media handles on the screen and in the description. Go follow her. Go
Only
show her
Instagram. Don't put anything else.
I'll even put your number and your social security number.
What's my social security number?
I'll ask mom.
Hey!
In the description, so go follow her, go show her some love. Guys, can you believe I'm 10 years older than her? Guys, go show my sister some love. And thank you so much for making time for this. After begging you, how many times? 300, 400?
She needs to understand, I am sick. Y'all can hear it. Subscribe to Nanelle, because if you haven't done it already, what are you doing? My sister is top tier. Subscribe, like, comment, and share this video to all your friends. And yeah.
Thank you for watching. Bye.